We're now joined by Chase Elliott, driver of the number 24 Hooters Chevrolet. Chase, you are currently 7th on the playoffs leaderboard, looking to get that final spot in the Championship 4 at Miami. Why don't you just talk about what your approach is this weekend here at Phoenix?
Our task at hand is pretty simple. We have to win the race to move on next week. Everybody in here knows that. We know that, and we're going to try to attack the weekend as best we can. Hopefully give ourselves a chance to do that Sunday afternoon, and see what happens. So that's pretty straightforward what we have to do with the situation we're in now, and it's not the most ideal situation, but if you were able to pull it off, it'd be a lot of momentum moving into next week. So we'll give it our best shot and see what happens.
All right, we're now going to open it up to questions. We'll start with Jonathan, go to Claire, and then go to Kathy.
Jonathan Merriman, NASCAR.com. Chase, you just talk a little bit about your confidence level being the fastest Hendrick Motorsports car for the past 3 or 4 weeks, coming in here and having to have that win to make it.
I think that as being a teammate at HMS, we all try to help each other to go fast, and we all sit in our meetings and we try to lend information and things that'll help all of us. Obviously, when the race starts, we're all kind of on our own in a lot of ways as to try to beat the other three, or whoever. You're trying to beat everybody, and those three are also in the field. So it's not just about beating them, but I think that we all have work to do, and I think that we have the right ideas and we know the direction we need to go. It's just a matter of executing it and getting there and putting an entire race together. It's more than just having fast cars. It's about putting a race together, having the strategy play your way. Some of that stuff you can do really good, and some of it you have to be, kind of have a good day and get lucky with for it to really work out in your favor. So hopefully we can do all those things Sunday, and it'll work out in ours. And hopefully, hopefully that'll be the case. But we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll go to Claire, Kathy, and then Bob.
Claire Beeline, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. This is a crazy race often at Phoenix, and there's a crazy situation, with the cutoff, and one guy gets in if there's a win. How far do drivers go? What is your moral compass as far as the end of this race? And surely it's going to get crazy.
Well, I think it depends on who's where and what the situation is and what guys are racing for what spots. And, we've seen that here before. I think if you're in a position that, it's going to help you, I think you got to be pretty aggressive. I think there's definitely a line as to how far you want to push it. But, if, the flip side of that is if you're racing for 10th, I'm not going to, put myself in a bad spot to run 9th, so I think it just kind of all depends on where you are and what situation you're put in and what it means to you to have that extra spot.
Kathy Brown, pitting outside the box. When you're in the race, particularly this weekend, are you going to have anybody on your team reporting back to you where other drivers are? Are you just going to go out and, run your own race, maybe wait to the closing laps? Are you that type of driver, or do you just want to go out there and not think about it?
I don't request information like that. Typically, if we were on the bubble and we were having to race guys, sure, they would let me know, hey, you're either in or out. And obviously moving forward means you're going to be closer to being in, and moving backwards means you're going to be closer to being out. But, for us, it's pretty simple. You either win or we're not a part of the 4 next week. So, the points calculations this week are really irrelevant to us. And they're not to a lot of other guys, but to us they are. So it sounds simple, just a matter of going to do it.
We'll go to Bob.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Can you compare the stress and the pressure of your situation now versus leading late in the Daytona 500, wondering whether you're going to run out of fuel?
Yeah, that's a good question. It seems like the Daytona 500 was yesterday. We were just talking about this morning and just how fast this year's gone by. But I would say similar. I think it's definitely similar. Being leading the closing laps of that race, not really knowing what was going to happen, and having a shot to win the Daytona 500. Obviously one of our biggest events. That could have been a huge day. But also right now is an important part of our season. A championship is huge, and being able to race for one is an opportunity any driver would want. So fortunate to currently have had opportunities to do both and have an opportunity to compete for a championship. Still do have an opportunity. It's more than I could say a year ago. So, although some disappointments there at Daytona were definitely there, and there's nothing I can do about that now, we still have a chance to go to Homestead next week, and we'll try our best to do that.
Do we have any additional questions for Chase? Up here to Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Chase, it's often human nature to think, what if? For somebody like yourself who says, you're in a position where you've got to win, that's something you haven't done yet at this level, you've come so close so many times this year. How tough is it to not think what if in terms of could have scored a win, how things might have been different?
You can play the game, I guess, of what ifs, but unfortunately, for our circumstances, we don't. This is a sport of do's and don'ts, and we have not. And I've said that before, and it's just the facts. What happened last week, it has, or a month ago, or the beginning of the season, or have an opportunity to win and not. It's nothing that you can change now. I think you just have to understand whatever position that you were in and hope that you learn something from that experience to know that if you're ever in that position again, you can change the outcome. And I think sure there's disappointments that have come along with that and with that learning curve, but I think that you just have to understand that you can't change it, and you hope that you can change the outcome the next time it rolls around, if it ever does.
We'll go back to Bob and then up here to Lee.
Bob Hunkers, ESPN. From your experience last year and experience this year, how much, if at all, did the racing change once you got to the playoffs? And was that surprising to you, or any different than just seeing the intensity from going from Xfinity to Cup?
Yeah, definitely different from Xfinity to Cup. My 2 years in Xfinity, as you know, the point system was different than what it is now. So we were racing for an entire season's worth of points. So completely different ball game than what we have to work with on this level. My first year in Cup was the first chance I had to ever work with a reset or work with a reset in points towards the end of the year. So definitely different for sure. The intensity picks up. I can definitely say, I think, as the playoffs start, and I think teams pick up intensity. Teams are pushing things harder with the cars. Guys are less lenient on track to certain situations, which as they should be. I mean, we're all trying really hard. So I think it's expected, and it's definitely there. So I can agree with you. I think the intensity picks up, and I think it increases as the weeks roll along, and depending upon what situation you're in with points and how you stack up, it can be either more or less intensified for you and your team.
Is it something that like you and Ryan Blaney and young guys have to get used to or adjust to?
I don't think so. I mean, it's the same for everybody, and I guess fortunately for me, while being in Cup, I've never really been used to anything else. So it's kind of what I've always seen. So I don't necessarily think so. I've watched it on TV for years with the old reset with 10 to go. So it's nothing that's so new that you don't understand, or you're not at least thinking about. So no, I think for me, I've always my 2 years here have been a part of it, and have seen it the way it currently sits, and I think that's probably the best thing about being new to something, is you don't necessarily know an old way.
Go to Lee.
To kind of follow up on that, what lessons have you learned throughout this year, throughout your first entry into the playoffs, that you'll take and be even better next time, so you're really not in this crunch kind of situation?
Well, this is my second time in the playoffs, but I do think that I learned some things last year. Like I said a minute ago, we're still a part of it right now, and that's more than I could say a year ago. So I think we have gotten better from that standpoint. I think we've run these last 8 weeks probably better than we've run the entire season. So I think that's encouraging to know that we have the kind of pace that it takes to go and compete for wins. We have the kind of execution, we have the pit stops, and we have all the things that it takes for it to happen. It hasn't, but I think we have the things that it takes to do so. So I think that's the biggest thing I've learned is, I look at last year, and I think there was a lot of opportunity last year. We had a great car at Charlotte to advance there in that race. Ended up getting in a wreck. So I looked at last season and just saw a lot of missed opportunity, and I kind of look at the beginning of these playoffs the same way. Throughout the first 8 weeks, we've missed some great opportunities that were there to help us move forward. So learned a lot. Have also learned that I don't want to miss out on those opportunities moving forward, and obviously I'm going to try everything I can do to not, if you ever have the chances down the road.
Any final questions for Chase? Chris?
Chris Knight, catchfence.com. Chase, no matter what happens on Sunday, is there going to be any satisfaction to know that you've had a solid season and something to build on for 2018?
That's tough because, the opportunities we've had, as I said a second ago, over these first 8 weeks were tremendous. And, it'd be disappointing to not make it for sure, to know how we've run in the playoffs and to know that we have competed with some of the guys that have made it in, or are currently working their way in for a lot of the season. And we've run with them at a lot of the races. They've won more races than us, but we've run with them a lot of times throughout the season. So I think that's pretty disappointing if you don't make it to know that much. But there has been some solid pieces to the season, but I don't think it would be satisfying if we leave here not a part of it next week, to know that we've run like we have these last 8 weeks and to not be a part of the show.
All right, Chase, thanks for joining us. Good luck on Sunday.
Thanks.